Critics are saying that Rachel Reeves' promises of increases in defence spending is far too little, far too late, and will do nothing to address the immediate problems that we have in this country today, or on the world stage today. And of course, that's not surprising. This woman can't do anything, can she? But what would happen if you told heavyweight boxer Anthony Joshua that a 9-year-old today would grow up and in 10 years' time would be strong enough to beat him? Would that threat intimidate him now? Probably not. And critics say the same logic applies to the government's promises about increasing in defence spending. The criticism, of course, centres on Chancellor Rachel Reeves' promises and plans and long-term pledges to raise defence and military spending. Labour is committed raising the spend from the 2.3% of GDP it is now to 2.5% by the end of next year and 3% by the end of this Parliament, but with a long-term goal of 5% by 2050. It's all words and it's meaningless until something actually happens. But opponents, of course, are arguing that promises of funding is not the same thing as funding, and that making these pledges for many years into the future does little to address the immediate challenges of today. Some defence analysts even warn that the security environment is deteriorating rapidly and will need far more investment very, very quickly. There are, of course, ongoing wars in Europe, the Middle East, possibly going to kick off in the Far East. NATO officials have warned about the growing threat from Russia and from China. And the UK Defence Minister, Al Carnes, has previously warned that the international situation could become significantly more dangerous in a significantly short time frame. Some analysts believe that conflict involving Russia could escalate before the end of the 2030s. Critics argue that delaying major spending increases until a future parliament increases the risks of Britain being underprepared. Well, ask any military person right now, and they'll all tell you we're in deep, deep shit, basically. Now, Labour's defence spending plan has gradually evolved since 2024. During the campaign, the party avoided commenting on the military or defence because it was seen as being bad for their campaign. It wouldn't have sold well among Labour voters. But after entering government, ministers pledged to raise the defence spending to 2.5%. Now, the government says this would represent the largest sustained increase in defence funding since the Cold War. Yeah, but the Cold War is starting to turn warm again, isn't it? But of course, these increases are far too small, far too late, and not going to help if anything happens right now. We could barely muster a division, let alone an army. If national security is not adequately funded, we'll find ourselves in a situation where we may have to fight a war and we won't have any weapons or manpower or material, food, oil, nothing, no way of getting it. But supporters of the government's decision say that defence funding must be balanced with economic stability. Well, Christ almighty, economic stability under Labour never happens, does it? Global tensions are rising, threats are evolving. You know, you can either have welfare or defence. You can't afford both. Which do we think is more important? Defending the nation or pandering to Labour backbenchers over welfare? There's a lot of resources need to be committed. There needs to be hard decisions. And this government isn't up to it. And this Chancellor isn't up to it. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks very much. Bye.